quarterback school Patreon community. No, not Patreon community. Man, I'm so used to saying that. Quarterback school live. Let's do it live. Man, right out the gate, fumble. Yeah, a little post-draft. Anything happen? Any quarterbacks go? Any offensive players go? We got a lot to talk about, y'all. A lot to talk about. We'll kind of rehash it a little bit, whatever. If you're here, you probably already know about it. I certainly appreciate you checking in to the chat. Good to see the familiar faces as always. Nate, Eric, Shane. Appreciate you guys checking in. Everybody else, good stuff. We're going to talk through the draft. I'll kind of give you my take as we kind of go through each of these things. This will kind of be probably a little bit more fitty than maybe most of my stuff, the stuff leading up to this part of it. But man, some quarterbacks went early. What could go wrong? I'm sure they'll all work out. Oh man. I mean, where to even start? Like, let's go through, first of all, make sure this thing doesn't freeze. We had freezing issues the last time. If it does freeze, let me know in the chat. We'll be able to bounce this thing back to back. Hopefully both sides are working. Boom. There you go. You're welcome. So we can have it. If we got issues, we'll just kick it back. Okay. That's the first part about the issues. I'll quickly see if I can kind of like recap all of them at some point. I think the most interesting one, obviously, is the Falcons and Michael Penix. So we'll start there, kind of like bounce around here, okay? So no great things, and I'll try to get to the chat as I can. But the Michael Penix thing to me is honestly less about Michael and more about just what the hell is going on. Because to me, if I'm Kirk Cousins, I know Kirk Cousins has gotten paid multiple places, okay? That's a different conversation for a different day. But if I'm Kirk Cousins, I am, earmuffs me here, like I'm legit fucking furious. Like furious. Furious. Like not only are you drafting my quote unquote replacement before I've even taken a snap, you just paid me. But hopefully we're good enough that we're never picking in the top 10 again. So the type of weapon you could get there to help the team, to help the offense, and again, they're not short on weapons, but like that idea being you're going to be back in the top 10 anytime soon is probably not something Kirk Cousins is thinking about. And I think you could make the other argument that if you're the general manager, you could say, hey, we're never going to be picking this high again. We have this crazy high grade on Michael. We've got to take him now. And I think we'll get into the whole like, oh, he's whatever. Well, I don't know how old he is. 24. He's going to sit a couple years. He'll be 26, 27. Hopefully when he plays, assuming that Kirk can stay healthy, all those conversations can happen down the line. My thought process immediately was, I would be out of my skull if I was Kirk Cousins. And really, I'd be out of my skull if I was anybody on that team. Now, that's no shot at Michael. That's just, hey, are we trying to and again, it's not easy to say, hey, we're not trying to win. We're not maximizing our capacity to win right now. We're thinking, hey, into the future, this would be a great move. Look at all, Aaron Rodgers sat, Jordan Love sat, Patrick Mahomes sat. Okay. And maybe it will work out. Maybe it will. I don't think any of those guys were picked in the top 10. Could you have moved back and got Michael Penix? Maybe, maybe not. I can't get myself out of Kirk Cousins' head. And really not just Kirk Cousins. Like Kirk Cousins at the forefront because it's quarterback school or quarterback-centric conversations. But anybody on that team. What are you thinking when you see them draft a guy at a position they just paid the guy? Yeah, I mean, Marchadio telling me that the Falcons head coach said they want to replicate the Packers. All right. I mean, the Packers had two of the best quarterbacks to ever play, and they won 2 Super Bowls. over the course of 30 years. I mean, winning Super Bowls is great. It's a unique model. And I'm not saying it's a bad model, and time will tell. And if I'm Michael, I'm probably pretty excited. You get to go learn. There's no expectations to play immediately. You look across the landscape of the guys who got drafted. Let's go through like each one really quickly. Caleb Williams, obviously in the best situation, like the best player, got some pretty good talent around him. Might have a new number 1 wide receiver. If Rome Odunze becomes a true wide receiver 1, I tell you what, y'all will never hear the end of it from me. Ever in the history of this. Now, hopefully he goes on to do that, just because I want that so bad. I do. But I'm fired up for Caleb Williams. I'm fired up for the Bears. We're going to be watching a bunch of Bears on this channel, I can tell you, just because I'm fascinated by it. I think the two guys that are in maybe the roughest spots for me are going to be Jaden Daniels and Drake May. That's no shot necessarily at them as prospects. I just think organizationally, the support system around them, new systems, new staffs, who knows, right? Like, it's a legitimate coin. I don't know. It might be a coin flip at best. I think those two guys are in the immediately the toughest situations. JJ McCarthy, Minnesota, I think that's where a lot of people thought that would go. I think that's a pretty cool situation for him as far as the play caller, what his track record has been as a head coach, play caller, what those weapons are in Minnesota. Pretty exciting. I think the Bo Nix thing is another one of those ones where, depending on how you sit with, Peyton, we'll see. I think he fits that kind of like mental model of what you think of was successful for Sean Payton at a bunch of different spots. Accurate, competitive, winner, played a lot. You can see the comparisons with Bo Nix and what Sean Payton has been successful at. We'll see if it translates. But man, Kirk Cousins, dog. What? Has anybody checked in on him? Has he I don't know. Oh man. And the thing about it is, because it's so reactionary right now, right? Like all the offensive players, all the quarterbacks in the top 12, it's just math and probability tells us that maybe not most, we'll say half. We'll say half won't work out. Certainly not all of them will work out. So now you can kind of look at the situations and be like, well, what's going to be the hardest situation? Well, I think Washington's going to be tough. I think New England is going to be tough. I probably think Denver is going to be a little tough. Who the hell knows what's going to happen in Atlanta, but he's not going to have to play right now. It's going to be awkward. Chicago, historically, pretty tough. Although you got to be, is everybody in Chicago today just walking around with a big ass smile? Remember those people that wanted to keep Justin Fields compared to what they just did yesterday? And nobody is on record for liking Justin Fields coming out more than me. Okay. This is better though. I'm comfortable saying that. We'll see how it shakes out, but crazy. And then the crazy thing not the crazy thing, and you probably could care less, 200 of our closest friends coming in here in the chat, but I didn't watch any of this last night because I was at this Little League baseball game. So I'm catching up on all this stuff late last night and this morning. That's why I didn't get a live going last night. But I'm still struggling for Kirk Cousins to be like, why? And now I think, so just my own internal struggle, and as you watch it and maybe make sense of it or try to make sense of it or don't, I think now you can empathize with Brett, with Aaron, and those guys I think were drafted in the 20s. Like that was more to me like a reactionary picks, like, oh, this guy's available. Like we have a really high grade on this guy. We should take him, as opposed to top 10. And maybe you don't think of it the same way. Maybe you think, hey, round one is round one. Okay. I'm just telling you, I think from being in an NFL locker room for a while, when you're a top 10 pick, like you're expected to be a fucking dude immediately. Like it's just different. And maybe like even like top teens, like early teens, like it hits me as different. Now, usually you're going to a worse team, all those types of things that you got to deal with. But like, I honestly cannot cannot get past what the hell Kirk Cousins is doing right now. Whew. All right. Appreciate everybody as you come into this thing. Hit the like button. I'll try to get into the chat now. My little mini monologue rant is coming to an end. Oh, man. Crazy. My guy Death 151 thinks this is boring. Appreciate you, big dog. Thanks for checking in. What else we got here in the chat? Let me know. We can talk some ball, talk some situations, talk some fit. Who's coming off the board next? I'm guessing it'll be Spencer Rattler. I don't even know. It was pretty wild to think that 6 quarterbacks, even when I say it, it doesn't sound real. 6 quarterbacks were taken in the top 12. Whew. Nate in the chat, Kirk should wear a t-shirt saying, "What the frick?" Yeah, I got you. I mean, and I guess it's hard for people and even myself to like make sense of, Kirk gotten paid so many times. Who gives a shit? He's a professional. He can deal with it. Okay. I mean, okay. I still think it's awkward. I still think it's going to be interesting on many different levels. CB, what up? Did you find testers for the website? Yes, I did. The website was supposed to be launched yesterday. Sad that it wasn't. Would have timed up well with the draft, but circumstances came up. I got a bunch of people testing it, so I appreciate everybody on the Patreon community that reached out. I had well over 50, probably closer to 75 people say that they would test. I asked like a handful of people, so not that many, but one little hiccup with the website, and then I'll probably get it out there soon. So I'm excited about making it happen. The hiccup actually comes from trying to connect, like auto upload the Quarterback School Twitter X account to the website. And I totally messed it up. Now I don't even have access to that Twitter account. So like it's totally user error. My bad. Oh, man. Matt Shangle. Yeah, Carolina. So Carolina takes the South Carolina wide receiver, right? I don't know if I'm going to be able to pronounce his last name as I see it in the chat. Leggetti. It's just, so to me, it's one of those things where all these wide receiver picks and all these offensive picks, like we sit here, we talk about, I try to like dive into the details about kind of, hey, what does this film look like? What does it look like they're trying to do on offense? What's the scheme? Match the personnel? Where are the personnel deficiencies? And I don't think that there were any as easy to identify as Carolina's perimeter lack of talent. And so, yeah, anything better, upgrade. What was the other wide receiver that I had that and again, no shock to you guys, I don't watch the wide receiver film. Like there are a bunch of people that do the draft stuff way better than I'll ever do it and comprehensively for the entire, draftable class. I'm not watching wide receivers. Now we watched LSU, we watched Washington, so we saw all those guys, or I saw all those guys. But like the other the dudes that I thought were interesting were the Texas wide receivers. Like one of them didn't even get drafted, right? The fast guy went to the Chiefs. The other guy I think is still available. Like it's, the talent on the perimeter for the wide receiver class is just so, it's seeming like deep and dense that hopefully they can come in and help some of these young quarterbacks, some of these perimeters that just last year looked like they were stuck in the mud. And, we'll see. Inevitably, not all of these guys are going to hit. It's easy to be excited about them right now, post-draft. But, like, I can remember, so anecdotally, my draft class in New Orleans, I got drafted with Dante Stallworth, young Dante Stallworth. Good dude. We grew up in the same area, Sacramento. Crazy fast, explosive wide receiver at Tennessee. The difference between like that type of speed versus a normal guy on an NFL team, and I mean, to be an NFL wide receiver, you have to be decently fast. Even if you think, oh my God, this guy's crazy slow, and I certainly make fun of guys that are crazy slow on the film, so you know who I'm talking about. You still have to be pretty damn fast to be in the NFL at wide receiver, okay? That's just the overarching kind of barrier to entry. But that kind of speed, like what I consider like low 4 speed, whatever you want to call it, 4.4, 4.3, 4.2-ish, whatever those kind of real times are, that speed hit different. It was like getting shot out of a cannon, trying to throw to a cannonball. Imagine trying to throw a slant to a cannonball. Right? Let that set in your mind for you. You're used to just coming out, throwing slants, easy go balls. Now throw it to a cannonball. See if you can hit a cannonball with your ball. Now, it's a nice problem to have. It's great when it hits. It's hard because it's going fast. And that's the feeling that I want these young quarterbacks in the league to have, like, oh, we got weapons. Like, this is speed. That's going to be pretty cool. So we'll see. I know I opened that up to the Stallworth jokes. It's still too soon. Okay. Laguette. There you go. I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I apologize. I messed up his name. What else we got? Man, my guy James doesn't like slants. What are you out there throwing? Hitches? You know what hitches are for, buddy. I mean, what else we got? I'm trying to think just quarterback-wise. I think this has been so I'm going to talk about Chicago here for a second. I think the Chicago thing got kind of like got a weird draft season a little bit just because there was that kind of like Fields fandom, Fields like passion that I certainly respect and liked Fields for a long time, but like how hard it was to like let that go, or like how it was easy for me because you could compare it to Caleb immediately and see that there wasn't a choice. But I'm so excited for that group, that offense. I mean, if you're not excited about that offense, man, now, what it'll look like in the Waldron world, defensive head coach, whatever. But I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know how you can't watch Caleb Williams film and then watch him. I didn't even watch it live last night, right? Like, I've just seen the highlights, but like, dude's passionate, fiery, yelling, like that shit resonates, I think, in the locker room. And so, I think it's going to be pretty damn fun. Pretty awesome. All right. What else we got? Whoa, baby. We got 300 of our closest friends in here. Again, I appreciate you guys coming in, hitting the like button. You got questions, now is the time. Crank in there. Sam, which QB is going into the best situation entering the NFL? So tough to answer. I would say probably the best situation is probably Minnesota. Although I want to say Chicago too. The only reason I wouldn't come out immediately and say Chicago is because Justin Jefferson and kind of the track record that Kevin has shown, his ability to kind of have a system that's quarterback friendly. I'm not saying that Chicago won't do that now. Just haven't seen it in that organization with this staff, with these players. I think it certainly has the potential to be. Those are kind of like my two immediately. I think the flip side of that, the ones that I'm going to have the biggest questions about are just going to be, Washington and Patriots. Just like what does it look like? I don't think it's necessarily a shot at those quarterbacks. So we'll see. Fandango Howard, how much stock do you put into Bo Nix's early college career compared to later? Do you prioritize one over the other in your evaluation? I would say I put some stock into his early career just because I remember it at Auburn and I felt so chaotic and crazy. I felt like he got a lot, obviously better at Oregon. I felt like the system kind of reined him in and allowed him to play to his strengths as far as that RPO world, the short passes, the completion percentage, but still being able to make plays, use his athleticism, create big plays down the field. Again, I don't think either of those systems was what I would classify as like traditional Sunday kind of, progression type systems where you see someone go 1, 2, 3, or consistently go 1, 2, check down, or, full field types things. So we'll see what that looks like. I think where he's at with Denver, Sean's proven that he can create quarterback friendly systems, obviously, captain. So does he have the ability to do it? They obviously think so. Which QB is going into the worst situation? I already talked about it. I don't know. It's a coin flip to me between Washington and New England. We'll see. Mike Ibsen. What can Rome learn from Moore and Allen? So I think that this is a good question. This isn't necessarily, my answer won't be, specifically to the Chicago wide receiver room. It's more just like any room, meaning position group, where a young guy comes in, a high draft pick. I think most vets that are comfortable, like you can't be like a young guy in the league hasn't gotten paid yet. But if you've been paid, you're a guy who's an established veteran, high level player, like, those two guys would classify to me. I don't know if Moore's been paid necessarily, but I think that if they make the room, meaning like if both of them come at it with respect, saying, hey, it's part of our job to mentor this young player in the room. Now it might not be in your contract to do that. And maybe it's not, some guys might be like, hey, fuck that. He's not going to come take my touches, my job, my role, my position, my whatever. You can still learn stuff from people like that. You just have to watch the way they go about it. It's not going to be as like, brother-in-law-y, as like, like family-ish oriented, if you want to call it that way. I would never put it that way, but like you can still learn from guys like that where you just watch the way they go about it, pick and pull things like, hey, I want to do this like him. I want to do this like him. Oh, he prepares like this. He studies like this. He learns like this. He does this route like this. He uses his hands like this. He blocks like this. You can still pick that stuff up just by osmosis, just by being around, just by watching with detail. But I think you can also get a lot from the conversations in the locker room, in the room before the meeting starts, breaking down kind of how it works for him, taking care of your body, your legs, those types of things that will go a long way. And it's totally dependent on what type of dude you got in the organization, what type of guy runs the room, who's the alpha, where all those things run through. So, who knows? Every room is a little bit different. All right, y'all. What else we got here? I feel like I've done a lot of talking here as I sit here by myself doing a live. Happy Friday. Zach thinks Washington is slightly better due to Cliff Kingsbury and the wide receiver O-line slightly better. Yeah. I think that's fair. Slightly better. Okay. It's one of those things where it's hard really to wrap your mind around, but like, let's just do the mental exercise here together as I'm by myself. Let's pretend that half of these quarterbacks are successful. Okay, the first 6 that have been taken, half. We don't know which half it's going to be. But if you had to say which ones are most likely to struggle, and again, we've already seen, what is it, like a couple years ago, when was that Trey Lance draft? Mac Jones, all those guys are essentially gone except for Trevor Lawrence, right? So they're all gone or traded. If that same thing happens in this class, I think people probably would classify this class as a little bit deeper than that class, or a lot deeper than that class. If half of them are gone, it's pretty hard to, feel like you got any certainty about what the hell that half is going to look like. Well, I think, again, The tougher situations are tougher to go into and have some success. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but it's tougher. Red Bird, the May film Bill showed on McAfee was not flattering. I've only seen like literally probably less than 5 minutes of the Belichick on McAfee stuff. I'll probably go back and watch it. Hopefully, I mean, I would imagine Bill was really good if he wanted to do it. He obviously would bring that like Bill Belichick humor, I would imagine. But yeah, I probably need to go back and watch it if there's like a cut. There's probably on YouTube like some video about his best moments on it. But it was pretty interesting that he even wanted to do that. I mean, maybe not. I've always thought of him as a crazy sharp. He knows exactly what he's doing. So if he's trying to finagle his either way in media or way into the next role, go into the most popular spot is a pretty smart play. And kind of also, I would imagine he used a bunch of his I heard he was using a bunch of his just like connections to get guys on. So you see the connection and how things work behind the scenes in the league with the phone calls and the access and the relationships that it's pretty cool to see. Bandego was all about McAfee. All right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. Casey got jokes about the Padres. Gotta have the faith, man. We're faithful out here. Not in that way, but in the Padre way. You know what I'm saying? Tragic clip. End of the show. I'm assuming he means Bill, asked to be a regular and secured a gig. I mean, it's pretty crazy what, obviously, Pat McAfee, that thing has totally gone, blown up in a bunch of different directions. But it's pretty wild that he's got guys like that are willing to come on and do that. NorCal Kevin, appreciate you checking out the PFF podcast I did with those guys. Enjoy their stuff. I actually caught a little bit of their live last night. I enjoyed those guys going back and forth. Romeo Bob 2. Hey, JT, is there a story behind that now famous Norv Turner hitches are for rhymes with witches? He didn't actually say it like that, but you know what he said. You know what? The funny thing about that saying is I was friends with a bunch of quarterbacks that had played with Norv. God, where did they play together? Maybe Washington? Whatever. Somewhere before Norv was in San Diego. And so I had heard that story about hitches from these other guys. And then when I was when I was in San Diego for a hot second with the Chargers, I'm almost positive he said it. I don't remember explicitly hearing it in person, but like I had heard it so much from other guys that it was just part of my like quarterback vernacular. Like it was just part of the and most guys when you go out and throw, you'll usually start with some iteration of hitches, maybe like a 1-step or 3-step or 5-yard hitch, however you do your kind of like route tree when you're throwing on the perimeter. That was always like you start with hitches. And so that was always like, this is a perfect route for you, dude. You love this. And they'd be like, why? And be like, well, hitches are for boom, Daniel, bam. Hey, JT, in light of the Penix pick, can you talk about what you learned while backing up Aaron Brooks in the first couple of years? Did you feel you were able to develop a lot? Ooh, Daniel, taking it back. Well, obviously, totally different situations. But yeah, I think that I definitely learned a lot from those early years. And it wasn't necessarily just from Aaron, who was playing at the time, but Jake Delhomme was the backup. And I probably learned more from Jake just because I was probably better friends with Jake and around Jake more than Aaron. But you definitely learn a lot. You learn, you see how they practice. You see how they prepare. You see how they interact in the locker room. You see how they interact with coaches. I remember going into the NFL world and in high school and college, everybody is coach, coach, blah, 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 coach. You can call everybody coach, right? You can still do that nowadays. But in the league, your colleagues, it's, hey, Mike, hey, what are we thinking about, Jim? What do you want to do here on fourth down, Mike? You know, and you're like, whoa, what? I remember being like, whoa, like, are we calling everybody first names around here? Like like little things like that where you just like, if you don't have somebody to watch, I think that everything is a little bit harder to learn. And so, the other part about it is specifically with Aaron, Aaron is a great dude. I enjoy Aaron, but he would do things and I would be like, oh, maybe I know this better than like, oh, I can definitely play, or like, oh, he thinks that this is that. I think it's something else. Am I wrong? Or is the starter wrong here? And like all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I could definitely play. Like, and that's no shot at him. That's anybody. You can have different opinions about how you read things, how you see things, what coverage this is, or like, getting into a conversation with a coach where they're like, hey, we're going to face quarters this week. And you're like, that doesn't look like quarters to me, bro. Like that looks like combo coverage and we're playing 2-man over here to the boundary and quarters to the field. And like, or like, like conversations like that, where when you see a veteran guy who's maybe a little older, who's got some skins on the wall, be like, hey, push back to the coaches, be like, hey, I don't like this, or like, hey, this doesn't work, or like get in somebody's face or get in a coach's face. It happens. And so that part of it, I learned a lot those first couple of years from everybody, and I learned stuff from all sorts of guys. But the first couple of years, I think, is the steepest learning curve, just because you don't know what you don't know, right? You're drinking from a fire hose. The volume is crazy. Everything is loud and feels different and new. And so when you can learn from someone, that's why I think the Michael Penix thing is fascinating, because obviously they're going to take a bunch of fucking slack, right, for doing this. And maybe it works and they're geniuses. Maybe they don't, but it's a deferred outcome, most likely, right? Unless something happens with Kirk or he can't play, that type of thing. But like most likely in a perfect situation, we won't know for a little while. So to be comfortable with that kind of deferred outcome, I mean, I certainly respect the capacity to pull the trigger on something like that. Like it takes some huevos, even if I probably disagree with it. Not disagree with Michael, disagree with just the process of it. We'll see. Fandango, was there ever a feeling of imposter syndrome when you first stepped out into the NFL practice field, and like, oh wow, this is much harder than I expected? I think the imposter syndrome was definitely just kind of like being like, hey, Division II guy, non-scholarship, you're around all these like big time SEC, All-American draft picks, being like, just like on the surface, I'm like, that doesn't seem like I would be here. Like I never thought like, oh, I'm going to the league or da-da-da. So that was never kind of like the model that I held as through my college experience. I just kept playing. And so I definitely remember being like, like, what is, what's it like? Like, I remember thinking like, oh, is it going to get a lot harder? Like, is this way harder? And I did like a couple bowls and I remember being like, oh, it's a little faster. And it was honestly a very similar to a thing I did in coming out of high school, where I was pissed about where I was going and under recruited. I went to an all-star game, like a local all-star game. And I remember thinking like, oh, the game is a little faster. Like everybody's faster. Okay. It's kind of like listening to a podcast on like 1.5. Like everything's a little faster, but you get used to it really quickly. And it's better like this. So like, I'm not blocking anybody going faster. I'm not, trying to rush someone who's bigger. Like my job is just the same, just sped up a little bit. And I kind of felt like it was the same in the league, in practice, in preseason, those first couple of years, where I was like, oh, it's a little faster. But once I kind of like settled into the speed of the game, again, I'm not blocking anybody. I'm not tackling bigger or faster guys. So like, I just need to play a little bit faster and have a faster understanding. What else we got? Law coming in late. Crazy first round. Which rookie QB are you more excited to do film study on this season? Law. Obviously, the Bears. See, I'm looking at a list just because my mind is melting. I'm excited to see Washington just because I want to see what Cliff is doing. I'm not that excited to watch New England. Certainly going to be excited to see Minnesota, what that looks like with JJ. I'm not that excited to see what Denver looks like. I'll be curious. Gotcha. Curtis Ewers. Do you believe any one person can accurately evaluate / predict quarterback success? No. Do you believe it takes a bunch of symbols, multiple opinions, or is there a guy? Quote. I don't really understand the second question. My honest take on that would be I don't think there's one person or one way that best evaluates or predicts quarterback success. Again, I've talked about how many variables go into it, whether it be luck, whether it be health, whether it be situation, whether it be stability in the front office, coaching staff, organization, all those types of things, traits, behaviors. And again, it's not easy because people want shit to be easy and black and white, and it's just not. So no easy answer for you there. Yeah, I see a couple people asking me like, what's the next, quarterback off the board? When will the guys go? Because this draft was so kind of top heavy for me, I didn't really watch a whole lot of other guys besides Rattler, watch a little Mixon, watch a little Jordan Travis. Couldn't get my hands on any of the Tulane film, so I didn't watch any. So I don't know when the rest of those guys are coming off the board. I got no idea. If you're wondering where all that stuff is, all those videos are on the Patreon community. Had a bunch of film issues with YouTube and the college all 22. So if you're interested, or you're like, where's the Drake May videos, or where's the Jaden videos? Patreon community. I know people think it's like paywalled. It is paywalled, but it also allows people to watch it where I couldn't allow people to watch it on the normal way. Oh, bro, I have no idea how to pronounce that super chat, so I apologize. Eberador? Sorry. Hey, JT, love the channel. Appreciate that. I'm feeling for Kirk as a person. He's a good dude, so I hope the locker room has a good feeling between him and Penix's team. Yeah, I mean, same. I think Kirk came across really awesome in that Netflix. Was it Netflix? That quarterback thing? I think it was Netflix. It was him, Patrick Mahomes, and another guy. The Oregon quarterback. Why can't I think of his name? Mariota. I thought he came across great in that. I would imagine, okay, overlaying my issues on Kirk's issues, I would imagine he's a very good dude. I know Michael is probably the little I know Michael, super humble, super thoughtful. He's going to go in there probably with the attitude to learn and soak up as much as he possibly can, but also compete like hell. And he can certainly spin it for sure. So, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where those two guys didn't ask for this, right? I think the places where I've been where it's been a little bit more like awkward for the little bit that I was in Green Bay, on Green Bay when they drafted Aaron Rodgers. So that offseason, or like that little time I was there, so draft, offseason, camp, it was awkward, but like both those guys are awkward. Like I would tell that to their faces. Like I think Brett's a little awkward. Aaron's a little awkward. I'm a little awkward. I'm okay with it. I think those two played against each other in a much different way than like what I imagine from the outside looking in at what Kirk is all about. And the little I know Michael, I wouldn't classify him as anywhere close to Aaron or Brett as far as just like demeanor or vibe or way he goes about it. So it would be totally different for me. Boom. All right, a little bit more. Oh man, I've already been going for 40 minutes. I felt like I really talked a lot on this one. Not that I don't normally talk as I'm by myself in a live stream, but like internal monologue, just vomiting out to you guys about trying to catch up with the craziness of what the hell that draft was. Boom. NSN sub super chat. Will you do film breakdown on Patreon for college quarterbacks who return to schools? Yours, Milrow, DJ, you, Beck, Gabriel. Yes. So the answer to that question is yes. This is the season for that as well. So just kind of looking forward as we've done as this kind of like transitions for this channel. Normally this time of year is when things get when I slow down a little bit, like May, June, July, really July for sure. But June, July, May, June, I'll start to go back and do college guys that are coming back. Basically anticipating the top guys in next year's class is the easy way to think of it. So if you have guys you want to see, like those guys, now's the time to let me know. And I'm definitely going to get to those over there. And again, they're probably all going to be on the Patreon community because I've found this little like workaround for now. We'll see how long it lasts. But boom, Eric Dodge coming in hot. 20 for the super chat. Here's a down payment for all the Kalen breakdowns the Bears fans are going to make you do. I appreciate that, Doc. Yes. I mean, I make no bones about it. Bears fans, 49er fans, they make this channel go. They're 1 and 2 as far as the passion and the people that are patrons, the people that watch consistently, that give the loudest, most passionate feedback. So I certainly appreciate it. Thanks, Eric. See, can I like that thing? Let's see if I can do this. Boom. There you go. Oh, double thumbs up and a heart. Yeah, so back to the college football film. That'll be in the pipeline. I got a couple X's and O's videos I'm going to try to get to. That's about it. And those college football ones. I think I've done all the playoff losses. If there are other NFL games that I want to get to that I just forgot and didn't get to at the end of the year, if the Raiders don't draft somebody, I'll probably go back and do maybe a little bit more Aiden O'Connell. Trying to think if there are other places that I thought would draft quarterbacks that didn't. Maybe go back and do some Daniel Jones if they don't draft anybody. Daniel, regarding your Hank video, Kurt did a video on Hank a few years back where he said he liked to read it out. Curl flat said, is that what your players do if they were just running Hank on the backside? I don't know what Kirk said. I would say that the way that I talked about it is the way that it was taught to me in like the West Coast world. You certainly see it read different ways in different systems. I'm not familiar with anybody in the West Coast world that reads it curl flat sit. I could see you doing that if the sit now becomes like just a glorified check down. And it would be an easy switch in like the digit world where I think Kurt spent most of his time. I don't know about his entire timeline, what systems he was in at each spot, but certainly with the March stuff, you could change reads fucking as you walk to practice. Like it's so flexible, and like the digit stuff is that's why it's awesome on many levels. But like, I think the easiest way to deal with Hank is to just put it in the dumpster and not call it. But you're going to see it. I think the best way to understand it if you're on the outside looking in to a team is what type of system is it? Is it West Coast? If it is West Coast, if they're doing it like they probably were taught it, it's reading it inside out. All right. I think that's a wrap, guys. I appreciate you all hanging out. Almost 300 of our closest friends in here. I appreciate all the super chats. Certainly excited for all the film we got coming down the pipeline, whether it's guys returning or now that we know where all these guys are going to be, forecasting out into the fall. Obviously, going to get a bunch of Bears, probably some Washington, lots of Minnesota, maybe some Denver, maybe some Patriots. We'll see. Watch Drake May just blows it out and is like the rookie of the year, no doubt, or CJ Stroud style. Who knows? I don't pretend to have all the answers. All right. Later. See y'all. Have a good weekend.